Does a constellation have to be an urgent issue? That is a very good question. And a lot of facilitators, especially the first generation facilitators, would say absolutely. And if you were not demonstrating behavior that was like immediate need, they would dismiss you. They would. They would say, we deal with life and death. And that's what this can do. That is a testament to the power of this work. And for the first several decades, it was only used for ER type situations of the soul. And absolutely, that's going to take priority. But I and the next wave of generation of facilitators see this also as an exploratory process to push the envelope of whatever your edge is. And you don't have to come to a healing modality broken all the time. If we shift the way we understand a healing community as a community of people who are not always broken, some people will come and they'll be okay. And we want them to come. We want to encourage people who just want to play in the field to learn something new about their life and what they could open up to. And those people will then be available for the ones who have emergencies. And so we want all kinds of degrees of urgency in the way that I facilitate. The workshops that are, 100 people, 150 people in Europe, that they can get pretty big. Those are just straight, I have a medical issue, I'm dying. And these setups absolutely address that in like astounding, what science calls compelling ways. It can heal trauma, but here's the thing. It's very different from American traditional therapy. I wouldn't even use the word therapy to describe it because you're not going to talk much about anything about your issue. You'll say a couple things, but they have to be facts. That's the difference. The difference between an interview for a constellation and talk therapy would be you're going to tell me everything you know about your history in therapy and talk therapy. And in that narrative is your opinion. It's your emotional circumstances and your beliefs and what you went through. And that's what you know, and that's your experience. And that's why it's very good to get a witness for that. And at the same time, though, if you want to change that network of thoughts, you have to get out of it. You have to stop talking about it. The more modern awareness of therapy is that it should not be taking years. Because if it takes you that long, something is wrong with the modality, right? And so this is one component to the healing process. The healing process is your path. It's your adventure. It's your hero's journey. You comprise and compose and sculpt and write your symphony of how you're going to get yourself out of this thing that you found yourself in. First, you have to realize you're in it, which is like devastating. It's like, why am I not succeeding in my given field? Or why is this not happening for me? What's going on? Because you've just emerged out of probably your childhood. You're probably in your 20s or 30s. And it's now going to be time to be like, what was that about? Like, where did you come from? Right? Who were they? And how do they compare to your family? Like, was that right? You don't know that yet. And then it's a learning process to discover where you came from, what your family's belief systems and code of conduct were for you, and what it took to belong to that family, and what kicked you out of that family's approval is very different from what would kick me out of my family's approval. They could be the exact opposite code of conduct. And so this looks at what your family requires of you to belong to that family. You can't actually get kicked out of your family system. It's energetic. But psychologically, you can be messed with. You can be told all kinds of incorrect beliefs. And that's what we look at here. But basically, talking about your problems for too long, it turns out, is not the healing path. So we're going to ask you about your narrative, but only facts. And so it'll become clear how difficult it is to speak just in facts. I'll give you an example. I say, what would you like to work on today? And they say, my father abandoned my mother. That is an interpretation. The word abandoned is how the mother feels. But what would be an accurate statement is, my father left our family when I was 14. So that's the subtle difference between how we investigate a situation. It's just the slightest shift, and it makes all the difference. We are going to be looking at something as objectively as possible with as many eyes as we can. This is a peer review circle of wisdom. And that's why I think it's going to prevail as a really leading edge technology for healing and advancement for individuals, because it's social. And if you're able to come to a social event, you're healed to some degree. Like, being social is the mark of how well you are, how integrated you are, how alive and willing to participate in life you are. And another problem that I personally had with the traditional therapies is that you only knew that person in that one way, in that one room, and they only knew that about you. And that's all you were. And then you couldn't know them in any other capacity after they helped you. And so they'll always know you as that person who had that problem. And it's a stigma that is unfortunate and unnatural to human societies. So village culture is what this is promoting. We're going to set up a constellation, and you guys are going to get to know each other in very specific ways, and pretty intense. And then we're going to complete that constellation. We're going to set up another one, and it'll be completely different. And you'll know each other in a totally different context, socially, which is what nature is. It cross-pollinates and diversifies a lot more than that one room, which has unspeakable value. You know, there's no reason to compare. It can do what it can do. And constellations can only do what it can do. It's going to have its limitations. And this is just one step in your journey for the healing path or the expanding path, because maybe you just want to work on a goal, or how to refine your character to the point where you're stepping into something you've never stepped into before. How do you get over that fear? You don't necessarily have a trauma to heal. It's just, what is it that is in the way? So the train agrees. That is what we call phenomenological. It says, get on with it. Come on, this train is about to move. It's leaving the station. So who would like to receive their constellation first?